Okay. Okay, so I say, and we're live. There we go. Nice and awkward. There we go. Right, yeah. Yeah, there we go. So, hello and welcome to the third episode of Matchup Plus Plus. I am joined by some special guests once again. You may not recognize them. They're rarely here on this channel. But the first one is Swissley.
Hello, how are you doing? You all right? Good. Oh, how's your parents? They're good. Great.
And also joined by Team Captain Chris.
Hello.
Awesome. So this episode we're talking about Tyranids, Necrons, and Grey Knights. That's why I've got you guys to join me, because we've got experts on the factions that you guys are playing, and it just makes sense to have people who know what they're talking about on the show. So I think with that, as always with the show, no messing about. We're just going to get straight to it.
Nice.
So we're starting with with Tyranids. So we got some stats here. I will have caveat the stats. Not tons and tons of games for the stats, because the meta reset with the new Marine coming out. So things are going to be a bit swingy for a while. So I've just had to sort of cherry pick the data a little bit. So Tyranids, they're performing best against Space Marines, Necrons, and Grey Knights, with a 57, 59, and 68% win rate respectively. And they perform worst against Chaos Knights, Tau Empire, and Eldar, with 32, 45, and 43% win rates. Their overall win rate is 47%, and the play rate is 7%, and they don't have any event wins. What do you guys think of that? I guess I'll start with you, Davey.
So I think Space Marines is a fairly kind of clear one. We have, now one of our best units, which we'll go on to, is Exocrines, but you can put alongside that Maliceptors, things like that. A lot of AP and 3 damage, a lot of 2 damage weapons as well that we're taking. So we can get through Space Marines quite well. One of the things that will be interesting to look at is which detachments are kind of the ones that people are taking. The most commonly taken at 42% is Invasion Fleet, and at 34% is Synaptic Nexus. So Synaptic Nexus, I think, has a really good game into Marines, because all that shooting I just talked about, well, you get reroll ones to hit, right, with a stratagem. So, that's pretty strong. And that will just make it so much more reliable. The amount of times that I've played Marines and just picked up like an aggressor squad with 2 Exocrines, and you're just like, oh, sick. And they've got the Biologists, so that's like 400 points, 300 points of your army gone. And I haven't lost an asset in doing it. So yeah, I think Marines is there. Necrons, again, we have a lot of blast weapons, so that kind of works. But I don't think I'm surprised it's that high. I don't know if Necrons are. We'll see on the next bit, right, what they kind of win against and what they lose against, but the most. But I'm surprised to see it as high as that. Grey Knights, we screen out the entire board, right? So,
yeah.
Get out of here with your movement shenanigans.
I guess the Space Marines and Grey Knights, you're going to out-see them a lot of the time. And I think the Necrons, I don't know what's going on with the Necrons. They're some of their win rates are a bit all over the place, but I think a lot of it can probably be explained by battle shot shenanigans. I think, because Necron leadership's pretty awful.
Yeah, that's probably true. Actually, that's a really good shout.
In regards to performing worst against, Chaos Knights makes sense to me. I see 8 on the objectives, and they're hard.
Nightmares about that matchup.
Yeah, hard to kill vehicles as well for Tyranids. Not a ton of anti-tank in there.
Mm-hmm.
Tau Empire, that one surprised me a little bit, but
yeah, me too, actually.
But I'm guessing it's just the Tau's ability to lift up units. Is quite good there.
I think Tyranids can't. Well, okay, so Tyranids can win generally. They score really good secondaries, right? Because we have lots of movement and we have the Biovores. So we score secondaries pretty good. The one thing that is difficult is primary, right? So we have 2 different choices in how we kind of do that. Either we stick a big monster on primary, which Tau can get rid of, or we stick loads of bodies on a primary point, which Tau can get rid of. So potentially it's just being out primaried. I think I've only played played against Tau competitively like twice so far this edition, and I've managed to beat them with Vanguard Invasion because I can just say point at units and go, well, that's got blown up. I think and annoying things like that. But I'm surprised. I'm surprised, like you are, that it's that our win rate's that low against them. To be fair,
Yeah,
but
whenever
I think 50-50 would be more.
yeah,
Because I can definitely see a win path for Tau, obviously. But
when I'm normally playing into Tyranids, I'm thinking that I'm going to lose in the primary game,
yeah,
and the battle shock stuff really hurts Tau.
I
So
think there's two ways we battle shock, right? That most of the time, one is through Shadow of the Warp, and the other one is through Neurolictors. And I think you can stand more than 12 inches away from a Neurolictor, which therefore kind of makes it not as optimal as we'd want to be, like against other armies like Necrons, for example. You stand your big blob in the middle, and I put 3 Neurolictors within 12 inches of it, and they're going to fail one of those.
yeah,
But potentially with Tower, they can just hold, do a little pre-measuring, hold back, and just go, look, I'm just going to shoot the shit out of you, and then like take over the board.
yeah. Any thoughts on this, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, looking at the Eldar thing, I mean, I've played Tyranids not that many times, to be fair, but I mean, Davey and I had a game quite recently. And yeah, I mean, like kind of the Eldar have the tools to pick up the big stuff. They have the tools, and unless the Tyranids are heavily skewing in a particular direction, then I guess it could be a bit problematic. But when they're in that middle ground of some, units with quite a few models and some like big monsters, the 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 other are quite good at picking those up, and on top of that, the Nids just really can't hurt them. Like, I mean, they really struggle to kill even the Eldar. Things like the Avatar and the Incarn, they literally just don't touch as if Fortune's up, and then you just rely on kind of the battle shock stuff to knock them off and that. But yeah, I can definitely see Eldar having a pretty good time into a lot of Tyranids.
The only time I've beaten Eldari, or the only way I've seen Eldari get regularly beaten by Tyranids is with loads of bodies, right? When they had both the Wraith Knights, like that's the way you did it. But now they don't have the Wraith Knights; they have more Warp Spiders, they have more Shadow Spectres, and actually, I don't even think that's a good way to do it anymore. I'm looking at an event in Peterborough in a couple of weeks' time, and I'm like, look, there's a couple of Eldari players there, but I have no idea how to win that matchup. I was even considering, do we go big monsters and which detachment's best for big monsters? But even that, I still don't. I think I'm still going to struggle. We're probably a lot of the monsters in Tyranids are strength 9 in combat, so they're still going to wound the Incarn on 6s if it has Fortune up. So a real
And
night.
then you're struggling into a lot of the other matchups.
Oh, absolutely, 100%, 100%.
Yeah, you don't have stuff like grenades or tank shock to fall back on, like other factions do.
No, we don't, unfortunately. But we do have some sick stratagems in our different detachments, to be fair. So, there is things out there. But it's, yeah, I mean, I would love a grenade strat.
Okay, so moving on to the most wanted for Tyranids. So these are the units that you're probably most likely to see. I guess there's so many units in Tyranids that you're,
Yeah.
and there's so many like things that you would see. There's probably not. This is not a comprehensive list. But I mean, do you
No.
want to go through these ones, David? Just
Yeah.
to give an explanation.
Before Tyraniid players spit their water out of their mouth, yes, Biovars are very good. Yes, they are, and they go in every list. But I thought we'd talk about something a little bit different. And yeah, so the 3 units that I just think you need them in your list to make a good Tyraniid list. You've got Gargoyles. Obviously, Gargoyles. I think Gargoyles are probably the best unit in the book. 75 points, you get 10 bodies. 10 has, I think someone described it as cultists with jump packs, and they just fire and fade just like Shadow Spectres. So, it's pretty good. So there's a couple of ways you can use them. You can use them to deny primary. You can use them to move block. You can deep strike in, shoot, and then move onto an objective. They're just really, really good at denying your opponent's primary. They're not good at scoring primary, I would say. I mean, you put them on an objective, sure, but then you're not getting the best out of them. So they're essentially a offensive unit versus points, but not against the opponent's army. So it's an asset that you use to deny points, but will die essentially, and you will lose that asset. So it's trading an asset for denying points, which is obviously what we always want to do. But if you have too many of them, like I've been using 4 units recently, I think it's too many. I think 3 is where the magic number is.
Awesome.
Chris, you really like gargoyles, don't you?
Yeah, such a pain in the ass.
Yeah, I fucking hate those things.
Because I mean, yeah, it's the I mean, obviously, I had the Shadow Spectres with my Eldar, and yeah, the Fire and Fade is so powerful. But when it's a Fire and Fade with 20 obsec, it's like well, and on top of that, you've got they control space so well. You know, you can be advancing them, fire and fading them, whatever, and you can use them fantastically to like move block, steal objectives. Because you know, if you think my Shadow Spectres quite often, I need to put 5 on the objective to steal something. Davey probably in a lot of situations only needs to get like 3 on an objective to, and then the rest can just go off and snake around and be a massive pain.
And potentially touch another objective.
Yeah, exactly that. So I think they're such an awesome unit, and I'm really not surprised that people kind of spam them in huge amounts, because I just think they get even better like the more you have, really.
The detachments where they're really good at, just to touch on
Yeah.
this a little bit, there's 2 detachments they're really good at, in my opinion, although you would take them in every detachment. One is Vanguard Invader, Vanguard Onslaught rather, so they have advance and charge. You know, because if Fire and Fade won't get you far enough, maybe you can charge instead. And you can also fall back and charge as well, so there's loads of little bits you can do there. So you get the extra movement. The other one is Unending Swarm. So an Unending Swarm, you can have a unit of 20 in your deployment, then you can spend a CP to auto-advance them, get them right up the board, stand in front of your opponent. If you can somehow generate CP and get 2 CP, so they're blocking your opponent, apologies. They're blocking your opponent, and then once you have 2 CP, you just bring them back, and you do it again. And if you have 2 units, then you just keep doing that over and over again. If you have 3 units, you just keep doing it over and over again. And that is, if you had 2 units, it's 300 points, and 2 CP every battle round. So if you have like a Swarm Lord, you can generate extra CP and stuff.
Just keep deep striking them, right? If you just keep bringing them back.
Yeah, well, you can keep deep striking them to give your opponent 3 inches, or you can deep strike them into somewhere safe, and then move them, and hopefully even give them 1 inch. And of course, the other thing is when you shoot them in Endless Swarm, they get to move, and they can move into combat. So
Awesome.
you get 1 thing to shoot them, and then I touch all your stuff.
Yeah, I guess the only thing I was going to say there was when the Eldar player is saying, "Well, these guys got some good mobility," you know that they're pretty solid, right? So
Yeah, it's a good point.
So Exocrine, I would say I wouldn't have expected this to be on like the most important things list. But you know better than me, obviously, because you're the Tyranid player. So why do people need to watch out for the Exocrine?
It's massive.
Why is he a big player?
It's massive. I know it doesn't sound. It's a very humble unit. It's 135 points. It is a big gun on a big tank, essentially, right? But 135 points, which is nothing. Now you could also put in this category the Maliceptor as well. The Maliceptor is like an Exocrine, but has a shorter gun, a few different up and downs on the profile. But broadly speaking, our 2 units have strong firepower. After that, we've got Zoanthropes, which are swingy as hell. They're really good sometimes, and then other times it will do nothing, and it's 220 points you've set fire to. But the Exocrine is more reliable. So why is the Exocrine good? 36-inch range, so you can keep your opponent honest while you're doing all your movement shenanigans. They can't just stand in the open and overwatch you. They've got to watch out for this D6 plus 3 shot, strength 8 minus 3 damage. That's not nothing. And of course, once that one's hit, everything else in your army gets reroll 1s to hit against that unit. So you can make your absolutely crazy swingy Zoanthropes reroll 1s to hit, which helps. You can help your Maliceptor do the extra points of damage that you need to do. So overall, Exocrines you'll find in, broadly speaking, I would say most Tyranid lists. I'm playing Vanguard Invader, right? Vanguard Onslaught, sorry, which is Sneaky Nids. We're moving around. I've got 3 of them in my list.
Yeah.
They're that good.
Do they synergize with any of the detachments in particular, or is it just they're just good on there? It's just a good data sheet.
Yeah, Synaptic Nexus they would synergize with, I think, because they would get reroll ones if the zone threw up or another unit was nearby. I've seen like John Lennon's game, which was on the Warhammer stream on Twitch. I'd recommend you go and watch it. He really shows you how to shoot with Tyranids. It's so good, and that does really well. And obviously in Invasion Fleet as well, because you get all the benefits to is it whether you have lethals against vehicles or you have explosions against infantry, it's still really good in those. I'm not going to say Crusher Stampede because nothing synergizes well in Crusher Stampede.
Last one on the list is the Neurolictor, is the new addition for the Tyranid roster in this codex. So why is that one people need to watch out for?
So I would say Gargoyles and Exocrines are good data sheets. They do the job really well. The Neurolictor stitches everything together. It makes everything it pulls the theme together of Tyranids. And I wouldn't write a list without at least two of these. So what they do is, in your command phase, 12 inches, if a unit's within 12 inches, I can make it take a battle shock test. Once a unit is battle shocked within 12 inches of the Neurolictor, my entire army has +1 to wound it, and it has -1 to hit me. So like the double whammy of buff and debuff is very good. So why is this important? Well, we can't wound vehicles or monsters for toffee, and if you give us +1 to wound, battle, I think Sisters of Battle have +1 to wound stratagem. I think World Eaters have a +1 to wound stratagem. This essentially is our +1 to wound stratagem. We need it to do anything if we want to kill absolutely anything. So there's that. And of course, it's lone operative. So one of the cool tactics that people are using, again, John Lennon, so he's so good and he talks about this really well. But I can put a Neurolictor 65 points on an objective, on my side of the objective, and say, okay, there's my 10 points for next turn, unless you get within 12 inches of it. And once they do move within 12 inches of it, I've got 3 Exocrines and a Maleceptor pointed at that objective. So, it's a really good mix of assets that brings the entire army together.
Awesome. So I guess on that note, we're going to
It had 7 wounds. 7 wounds. A 4-up invuln. It also can have precision attacks against characters. So hits on 2s, strength 6, -2, 1 damage. Man, it can take out a Farseer or something, right? Surely.
It slices, it dices, it does it all.
Yeah.
So, speaking of the going on to the list, you've generously donated me a list for this one.
Yeah,
this
I
is
chuck my eye on it. Yeah.
This is the Vanguard Onslaught detachment. I think you said right.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
So you got a Death Leaper, a Neurotype with Hunting Grounds, 2 Wing Primes, 1 with Neuro, 1 with Chameleonic, 3 units of 10 Gargoyles, a Biovore, X-Creen, Maleceptor, 3 Neurolictors, a Pyrovore, a Trigon, 2 Exclusive Tyranid Warriors with melee for the Winged Primes to go into, and 6 Zone Throws.
Yeah. One error in this is it's 1 times 6 warriors and 1 times 3 warriors.
Oh, my bad.
Is
Sorry.
my current. No, it's all good. It's all good. So don't at me, fam. But the crack is really with this is it's just got quite a bit of jank with quite a bit of shooting. Lots of movement shenanigans, which is a lot of good fun. Sorry, the dog is crying here.
Yeah.
I'll bring him up. There we go. You can get some strokes. I like that. So yeah, I'll kind of talk about what everything does in the list if that helps.
Yeah, I just wanted to it's for example, I know you don't want to give away all your tricks, right? It's probably a kind of tricked you into putting your own list out here. But if an opponent was playing into a Vanguard Onslaught detachment, a list similar to this, what's like the big things that they need to be aware of? I guess the things that could catch them out going into the game.
So a lot of it is it's just what I try and do is overwhelm my opponent with the amount of tricks and tools that I have, because there's so many. So obviously, let's talk about lone up. Like I've mentioned before, I can hold objectives quite well as long as I can stop you getting within 12 inches of it. So I can use Gargoyles to screen out 12 inches. That means I score my primary next turn. And I can do that with Deathleap. I can do that with Neurolictors as well. If my opponent has indirect, then I can hold my home objective, no problem. With Winged Tyranid Primes, they give the warriors the Vanguard Invader keyword, and one of the things you can do with all Vanguard Invader units is loan up them. So I can just point at a unit, 1 CP, loan up. I can make them move 6 inches. If you move within 9 of them, I can pick them up at the end of your fight phase and bring them in. Not next. Well, I can bring them in next turn. I could bring them in any turn, turn 5, because it doesn't have any specifications on it. There's lots of things like that. I can use my 3 warriors in a prime, for example, to I can spend a CP and give them precision and take out a character that I need to do when I've got Assassinate on my cards. And on top of that, you've got normal Tyranid shit. So Biovars scoring secondaries for fun. Exocrines, there's 3 Exocrines in this list as well, doing that kind of stuff. And then if my opponent's got, the other thing is Trigons. So Trigons are, I underrated them. They're very good.
Yeah.
You rapid ingress them in, and if you rapid ingress it in a space where they can't be shot, the next turn they move 10 inches, charge something with 12 strength 10, I think, minus 2/3 damage attacks.
That's solid.
Yeah, they're really good, man. They're way better than I thought they were. But yeah, so overall, all of that. And of course, last thing, zone probes. I bring them in from reserves, and then again, like 1 CP, I can just pick that unit up and then move it to the other side of the board to kill something else next turn.
Okay, awesome.
It's pretty strong. It's a lot of movement. You have to be prepared to kind of deal with it.
So there's a lot of shenanigans and tricks with Tyranids. You're going to be kept, well, certainly with Vanguard Onslaught detachments, you've got to really be checking into them and keeping on your toes, basically, right?
Yeah, the way you beat them, honestly, is just by running at them. I think you just have to not be worried about how they come back at you, because as we've mentioned, that we don't kill stuff very easily. A lot of this is empty threats, quite honestly. It's as soon as someone's come at me. I mean, Chris, our game was a great example. Your Wraith guy just going to the middle. What the error I made in that game was I tried to engage them and I tried to solve that problem. In reality, I should have just left them well alone and just went, okay, well, you have the middle then. Can I have these side objectives? Is that okay? And then try to survive.
Nice. Okay. And so I've added an extra sheet here to the normal format going forward. So things to watch out for, tips and tricks for Tyranids. So I spoke with you beforehand, Davey. So we've got primary denial. It's a big thing for Tyranids.
Yeah, my job is to try and get you to less than 30 points primary, really, and I do that with Shadow the Warp. So if you don't, we haven't spoken about Shadow the Warp. That's our entire rule. So Shadow the Warp, essentially, once a game in either my command phase or your command phase, I battle shock your entire army. You cannot insane bravery it. Generally speaking, it's just a battle shock test. If I've got a neuro tyrant, you have -1 to all your units' leadership, which is way stronger than it sounds. And then on top of that, if I've got Death Leaper within 6 inches of a unit, you get an extra -1. So it's super, super good. And as we've mentioned as well, we've got Gargoyles which can fire and fade and just put you on a 5 primary. My dream is putting you on a 5 primary as many times as possible. So I don't like taking hold. Taking hold annoys me as an issue.
So I would say, as someone who's trying to play into Tyranids, you therefore need to make sure you can't just put one model or one thing on an objective, even if they can't get there, because they might just get battle shocked away and not hold it. So you always want to try and, even like your home field, make sure you've got 2 or 3 things in, just to make sure you're getting that primary. And the way you can block the Gargoyles off is obviously they are going to Deep Strike down 9, Fire and Fade, which is 6. So you can screen that out and stop them from getting onto objectives if you put some of your chaff or your screen units right in front of those objectives, like an extra, 3.1 inches away, then they won't be able to actually get onto the objective when they find fade. So it's like that sort of thing you need to be thinking about when you're trying to hold your primary, extra safe lockdown, and then also really think about your screening units. Where do you want your opponent to put their gargoyles, especially if they're taking 20? Take up a lot of space, right? You can definitely screen that out.
Yeah.
Awesome. I know that for Shadow in the Warp, as a Tau player, getting whacked with an entire army of leadership 8 tests, it's not fun.
Yeah.
That's the worst thing ever.
Crip had a
So
fun one in our game. In our game, he lost all his primary one
So
turn.
I
Yeah.
literally failed, like whatever it was, like 5 out of 7, and I just lost 10 points just because I couldn't roll some 6s or 7s. I was like,
Yeah.
it happens, right? You have to, as I think Scrivo said to us, like you kind of have to allow for the fact that once a game you're probably going to fuck up. Your dice rolls just is what it is, and you're going to lose some primary because of the battle shock stuff.
Yeah. Okay, and then the last one is essentially model spam, right? In a way, activation lock, right? That's probably a better way of putting that.
Yeah. So the one of the up and coming, so to speak, lists is Unending Swarm. Unending Swarm is amazing at scoring and denying. Right, it does very well. Some really good players. I can't think what his last name is now. Sam Smith, it might be. In America, he's got doing very well with it. Tyler Bartell's talking about it. He does a podcast where he talks about how the ins and outs of that work. I think it's the Best in Faction podcast. So definitely, if you're interested, go and have a look at that. But essentially, you take 160 to 200 gaunts, and you just put them on the board, and every time that unit is shot, it can move D6 towards your opponent, and it keeps doing it. Every time they're shot, keeps going, and they just take over the board unless you wipe them. The way to kind of combat that is just to push as hard as you can back every turn. I don't like the what you call it, the detachment, because it's not 40k in my eyes. It's almost like playing a different game, and your opponent never signed up for this experience. It's like this is an unfair thing to do to someone. So they've got to go, okay, I need to kill as many of these things as possible and then screen. So of course say you kill one of these units, 2 CP, you can bring it back. So 20 termagants coming back, 20 hormagaunts coming back, 20 gargoyles coming back. And they can bring them in. I mean, gargoyles deep strike, so they can go anywhere they like. Units can just come in from any side. So you need to keep pushing back, screening, leaving units behind so that no one can come in behind you, and push back. And hopefully by the end of the game, you can win. It's not an unwinnable match. I think there's some players trying to break it to make it unwinnable for the opponent. But you can do it, but you just really have to use every chaff weapon you can find, grenade strats, blow things to bits, because it's not like a normal game of 40k. You just need to activation lock, as you say, Jack. Get as much for your bang for your buck every time.
All right. And the last thing I wanted to cover here was for anyone who's playing Tyranids, Davey, what is the one tip that you would offer them and say the thing you need to keep in mind playing Tyranids?
Don't bother.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really hard going into the new meta. I've been talking to a few of the guys about how difficult it looks at the moment. It does look a bit daunting going into this new meta because there's a lot of things we're going to struggle to kill and struggle to beat. What I would say is we're not durable. You can't just leave us out in the open. We will die out. We've got extra wounds, more wounds than we should do, versus other factions, but we've paid for that in our lack of armor save for the most part. So we do die essentially. And the way to kind of do it at the moment is for my money, is to just play super KG, which isn't how you want to play Tyranid. You want to charge your opponent and just try and rip them to bits. But to play KG, depending on the detachment, and have as many successful trades throughout the game as possible. And by that I mean kill something and not get killed back.
Right. Awesome. So I think that pretty much covers the Tyranids. So the next faction we've got here is Necrons. So Necrons perform best against Space Marines at 57%, Custodes 58%, and Astra Militarum with a 65% win rate. They perform worse against Chaos Space Marines with a 19% win rate. Eldari with a 44% win rate, and Tau Empire with a 42% win rate. Their overall win rate is 44, play rate is 6. that is, an event not 6 players, and there's no event wins there. What do you guys think of that? Anything that jumps out at you surprising there?
So there's one major surprising one here, which is the Eldari. I was watching a Art of War battle report the other day because Siegler is trying to work out what he wants to take to the World Championships, and him and Jack were saying that actually, in the grand scheme of things, Necrons have a really good matchup into Eldari, and therefore, and because they're expecting quite a lot of Eldari there. It's kind of like can you build a Necrons list that then takes on the bad matchups like the CSM and that sort of thing. So I find that quite interesting because I know as a Eldari player, I haven't played them since the balance update. But even with Wraith Knights, there were points where it was like, oh, because the whole point of the Eldar shooting is it's highly efficient, but it's not like a huge amount of output in like one go, which obviously means like trying to deal with the blobs and that sort of thing can be problematic. And I know in teams we were kind of quite happy if we'd managed to get our Necrons into the Eldar. So yeah, I am surprised at the Eldar one. I thought they'd probably be more like a 55% win rate, really.
But isn't that because the lists have had to change, and now it's not just efficient shooting, but you've got flamers, you've got more warp spiders, more shadow spectres.
They don't do huge amounts. They're not going to clear through the big things in quickly enough, and then the stuff just starts regenning, doesn't it?
I think the something to keep in mind is Eldar does have a positive win rate against every single faction in the game, bar 4. So it is something to keep in mind. They are still just really good. But yeah, they do have the Eldari weakness is something is the Necron strength, right? It's a massive number of bodies that just keep getting back up.
And
You
it's
have to
going
be
to
able
out
to,
offset you because they're very good on the primary, and you're going to struggle to take them off it.
Yeah, exactly. But at the same time, they
Sorry,
have
go on.
they have the similar kind of issue as the Tyranids have, where they have a lot of bodies, they can do a lot of primary game, but they don't have a lot of killing power. In that same sort of vein. So they probably, I've not played Necrons into Eldar specifically, but if I had to guess, stuff like the Avatar, stuff like the Incarn, and Fugan, like stuff like that, they're really going to struggle to deal with models like that. So they're pretty much just coming down to, the Necron warrior blob on the objective. That's the only thing that one of the few things I think the Eldar would struggle to deal with in that list.
Yeah, I guess it depends. Like, if I was an Eldar playing into any sort of Necron list which hadn't teched into the big blobs and that sort of thing, I'd be a lot happier. It's only when I played into 30 Lich Guard at a tournament, and even with a Wraith Knight, that was incredibly sketchy. And I felt like personally I had to play out my skin to try and win that. So I guess it's probably the fact that Necron lists are moving away from this like blob aspect because of armies like CSM that'll just go in and be like, bye bye. And Votan's not there, but also we know from team's experience that Votan absolutely wiped the floor. With
100%. Votan do also have a very strong win rate against Necrons. Tau and Votan are like the two factions that notably have a unit that can kill a Necron warrior blob in one activation, just straight up. They're the two factions that specialize in doing that. And Chaos Space Marines are just ludicrously strong in general, right?
That's a terrible win rate.
Yeah.
Is that the lowest one?
No, there are factions with like a sub 10% win rate out there against other factions, but it's pretty bad. It's just there's no. It's one of those things where you just can't stop them running at you, right? Because you have very little killing power.
And if you do stop them running at you, they just use blast weapons to blow you to pieces.
Exactly. Yeah. The old Forge Fiends do a number on those big units.
And Blitz.
Because it's 3d3 plus 12 shots with exploding 5s or exploding 6s and full rerolls.
I watched this. So this game was Jack's World Eaters into Richard Siegler's Necrons. Siegler had this tech of this fights first Lich Guard blob. He was like, maybe this is a way that we can kind of deal with it. They played one turn and then they called it.
Wow.
Because Siegler kind of pushed out, and then Jack just went full send and just annihilated so much stuff that was pointless playing on.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Fight first on a pillow is still a pillow.
Well, he worked out that it would kill kind of if you played into CSM, it would kill like 6 chosen or something, which would kind of like help neuter the situation.
All right,
The
okay.
problem is that a good player can just multi-charge this Lich Guard blob. So actually, they're never going to get the whole unit in. You're just going to be putting a few Lich Guard this way, a few Lich Guard this way, a few Lich Guard this way. And in this game's point, it was Angron was one of them, a Rhino was another, and they just tagged and based as many models as they could.
Nice.
And it meant only a few could get into the I think it was the Exalted 8-bound, but also like 10 Berserkers just clean up. I think do like something like 25 to 30 warriors.
Oof.
Yeah, if you not having the 4-up invul on them will
Yeah,
because you can only put that on one. So I guess the you need to say the armies are good against Custodes. I mean, Custodes are well known for their shtick used to be we're gonna out OC you on primary, right? Primary game used to be the Custodes thing. They neither have the output required to kill large warrior blocks or Lich Guard, and they don't have the ability to beat them on the primary. So that's kind of rough. Ashen Militarum, that one makes sense to me because I guess they're relying on a lot of indirect and like chip shooting basically, which is something Necrons like. If you put a Ghost Arc next to a Necron Warrior Blob, they'll never go below 20 models. Space Marines again, I think they're relying on a lot of indirect at the moment with the Ironstorm. They don't have like a single unit that will kill these big units in one go. They're more like more relying on chip damage, and they don't have the bodies for primary. I think it's a similar kind of reason why they're not very good into Tyranids. It's a similar kind of principle.
Is the Space Marine one slightly skewed though, because the majority of players, or a large percentage of players, are Space Marines, and therefore and only a few percent of them are, a few percent of all players are like great and win games.
Are you saying there are lots of bad Space Marine players, Davey?
No. What controversial statement. No, but do you know what I mean? Like, I think it might be skewed because I think, but
yeah, Space Marines do come up on the perform best against list quite a lot. So
yeah,
you're probably not wrong.
But the Astro Militarum one's interesting because I would have thought Viewpoint for 3 Lehman Russes and 2 tank commanders and a hell, what do you call it? The tank with the flamer. Can't think what's called, Hellhound, and they all point at one of these units. Surely the unit goes away.
Well, that's the problem, right? If you put a Ghost Arc next to a Necron unit, you shoot that, say, Necron Warrior unit, and you kill, I don't know, with a 4-up invul, you maybe kill like 7. If you get yeah, and then you can use the strat and you get all those back. And you shoot him with another Lehman Russ, and then you use the Ghost Arc and you get all of those back. And you shoot him again, you kill 7. Okay, they can't regen that one. Next turn, or next phase, I guess, you charge some Ogryns in. Oh, well, we're just going to regen with the Ghost Arc again, and we're going to use the strat again. And it's just constant getting back up again every time you touch them.
Well, they're actually edging forwards as they get back.
Yeah, exactly. And if you overwatch them, guess what? The Ghost Arc's going to get them up then again. So, yeah, that's. I think that one kind of makes sense to me. So most wanted, the units that you're most likely to see for the Necrons, we've gone for Lich Guard, Necron Warriors, and Hexmark Destroyers. We've spoke about the first two quite a lot already. So the Lich Guard, they're -1 to wound all the time, unlike most of the bodyguard units. With T5, 2 wounds, 4+ invul, 5+ Finer Pain. They can be quite difficult to put down. And if you don't have something like a very large amount of damage 3, they're probably not going to go down. And again, you can reanimate them multiple times a turn. You've got a Resurrection Orb, so you can do it in the enemy command phase. You've got the Strat, which you can use multiple times a turn. And then their weapon is a solid breakpoint, because you can with their Strat, you can put them up to Strength 7, AP 3, 3 attacks each, hitting on 2s. So it's a solid chunk. With the Necron Warriors, as they normally have a 4+ involved, first unit will almost always have that through Orican the Diviner joining their unit. Or they'll have a Technomancer in there for a 5+ Feel No Pain. I've already gone over the reanimation speed with the Ghost Arc. OC2, you can put a Command Barge in there, again OC3. They're just very much a pain to deal with. So, just like 60 OC on an objective.
Some good numbers.
Yeah. So they're basically the two main things you need to worry about with Necrons, is that can you kill these two units? If yes, you probably win. If no, it's going to get dicey. The other one that catches people out a lot, I think, and you see this in most of this, is the Hexmark Destroyer. So it's got a rule called Multi-Threat Eliminator. Every time you shoot a unit within 3 inches of it, including itself, it gets to shoot you, which is 6 shots, 6, 2, 1, with precision. So that will just that can just ruin your day. Start taking characters out of units. It can deep strike, so something you can do, or people do, is you rapid ingress just over 12 away from the opponent because they have lone operative. And then, so if you deep strike something in to try and jump on one of these Necron units, you can rapid ingress the Hexmark in just over 12 away, so it can't be countered. And then if they try and shoot your warrior unit or whatever else, your Lich Guard unit, you can start precisioning out characters. Also, Overwatch is on 2s, and you get a bonus Overwatch with it. So it's a weird one because it's like, okay, it's only 6 shots of strength 6 AP2 damage 1, but it will probably shoot like 18 times in a game.
Crazy.
Quite a few.
Yeah. So those are the ones to watch out for the most, I think. In terms of a common list you're likely to see, this is Alex Chancellor's list from the Saffron Slam team event. It is a bit team skewed, but I think it's pretty much covers most of the stuff you're likely to see. We've got the Catacomb Command Barge and Eternal Weave for a 4+ Feel No Pain. That's giving +1 OC to all units within 6. The Hexmark Destroyer, as we mentioned before. Illuminor Zeras gives Armor of Contempt and +1 AP to all battle line units within 6 of him. We've got a Lord of the Hypermaterial Ablator, -1 to hit that unit, and cover if you're over 12 away. Just makes this Necron Warrior harder to kill, just stacking up defensive buffs on it. Another Lord, an Oracle the Diviner, 4+ Feel No Pain. Plasmancer with Veil of Darkness, so you can pick up a unit and move it once per game, deep strike it in the same turn. A Royal Warden, which is gives you Assault on the guns and Heavy, but you never use that. 2 Technomancers for defensive stuff. 10 Immortals with Tesla Carbine. Some 2 units of Necron Warriors, a Reanimator. 2 units of 2 Crypto Thralls, 5 Flayed Ones, and 10 Lich Guard. Crypto Thralls are the one that catches people out a lot, I think, as well, because they attach to a unit and they become part of the unit for all purposes. So when they die, even if you kill both of them, they can just get back up as long as the unit's still alive.
And that's tougher than the unit generally is, right?
Yes, because they have a 4 Feel No Pain base and they have 2 wounds. So they're considerably tougher than Necron Warriors, and they're about the same as Lich Guard. So
yeah, you love to see it.
Yeah. So that's a bunch of common stuff you're going to likely to see. So stuff to watch out for, say the Hexmark Multi-Threat Eliminator. It may. I've played this against Paul, the resident Dark Angels player. I think I played against him in Necrons like 3 or 4 times now, and every game he's like, I fucking hate that Hexmark, because he always forgets about it, and it ends up shooting him like 4 times in one shooting phase. It's great fun, but don't do that. Either go straight for the Hexmark. If you're gonna shoot the Hexmark, shoot it first and get rid of it. So that's
or position yourself in a way where you can shoot a unit but not be seen by the Hexmark.
Exactly.
Out of the range of the Hexmark, because I think it's only 18, is it?
It is only 18, yeah. Reanimation stuff, when stuff gets back up, it can get up incoherency if the models are already there. So as Chris said, units inching forward as they go down, get back up, go down, get back up. It's like a pseudo movement phase. So they sort of like snail crawl across the.
It makes
the board.
pot shots kind of pointless, and actually,
Mm.
you need to be thinking. I think there's sort of army you really need to plan out the order that you're shooting in and that sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly. And then the Necron stratagems they have available are really powerful. Pretty much all of them. The ability to resurrect a character, full rerolls to wound with any shooting attack. So the reanimation one we've already spoke about. There's just a lot of really good stratagems in there. So if you're playing against Necrons, I would definitely say to double check those ones and make sure you know exactly what they're capable of, because the stratagems that can really swing a game. So definitely one to keep in mind. Do you guys have any other thoughts? Anything else you can add for the Necrons? I'm talking a lot.
Move block them and slow them down. So a lot of slowing
Yeah.
down stuff is really good against Necrons, and maybe that's the matchup with Eldari, right? Maybe the Night Spinner in them.
Yeah, the night spinners can certainly depend. Like if they're relying on 120 man, it's just going and Eldar get to go first, and they're just going to night spinner it. It's just going to move slowly the whole game.
Yeah. But move blocking it also works. Have some sacrificial units that you can just chuck in front of them.
But conversely, don't give them charges, because yes, they are slow. So if I was an Eldar player and let's say I night spinner them and then I go and stick 5 rangers in front of the blob to also slow them down, well then I've just given them a massive charge, and with pile-ins and consolidates, actually they're now going to get to the middle, which is the only place they want to be. So be careful. If your plan is to keep them slow, make sure you're not giving them charges onto things, because they're not going to kill you, but you're also probably not going to kill them back. So don't give them things like the opportunity to wrap a vehicle, for example. Like imagine if they saw that juicy rhino and just made their way around and then wrap that rhino and that sort of thing. Like that could potentially be game ending and shut you out of primary. So you've just got to be really careful not to give them like those juicy charges into dangerous spaces.
Yeah. Okay. And as Scribbo has commented in the old YouTube channel, only engage if you know you're gonna win it. You don't want to get caught in combat, so you're gonna be stuck in forever, because that's just going to end badly for you, most likely.
Yeah.
So I think that pretty much covers Necrons. So next up on the list is Grey Knights. This is what we've brought Captain Chris on for.
Oh, Chris, there you go. There's the better win rate.
Yeah, exactly.
That's awful.
So we've got an overall win rate of 48% and a play rate of 3% with 0 event wins. We're performing best against Marines, Necrons, and Tau Empire with a 55, 72, and 56% win rate. And then they perform worst against Tyranids with a 32% win rate, Chaos Marines with a 10% win rate, and Eldari with a 42% win rate. I mean, what do you guys think of that one?
So just to clarify, I've only played one game with the Grey Knights so far, but I've done a lot of like research on them and this building and watching videos and stuff. So I think I've got the play style. If you think of Grey Knights, when they first came out, everyone raved about their rules because they are so maneuverable and they do all the things that make an army good. Right? They can you pick them up, you move them around, you teleport them constantly. They've got some really good enhancements and stratagems. They're a really tricksy army. Their weaknesses are that they can't kill shit, and it's kind of that obviously makes a big difference. So in a lot of games, and if you've got armies that can kind of deal with those tricks, they're just going to cause issues. And you see some very interesting builds at the moment, leaning one way or the other, going MSU or all of the Terminators. But I can definitely see kind of like they've got access to mortal wounds and stuff, which is going to be good for the Necrons. I mean, it seems like everyone dicks on Marines, so no surprise there. I know the Jack Carpster built his list purely for WTC for the Eldari matchup. It's a very drawish matchup when played well. I think this is probably the most important thing. You have to be a good player and know your matchups and know how to play the army in order to put them at their highest level. And I suspect that a lot of the time Grey Knights aren't being played to their maximum potential, and so therefore they will struggle because they are quite a difficult army to play. But yeah, that Chaos Space Marine matchup is horrendous. 10%. Wow.
I think that's 20 games as well.
Yeah.
So yeah,
But I think we've got several great players playing CSM at the moment, and probably none of those great players, as people move to different factions, right? We've got more. It's got a higher amount of people in CSM who are top players, I suppose.
Yeah, but I think Chaos Marines stuff like the stuff that they're bringing with the Chosen, the Obliterators, the Forge Fiends are all really good at killing Grey Knight Terminators.
Yeah.
Because Grey Knight Terminators do not have 4 wounds, do they?
No.
They only have 3. Which that's not great.
It's quite a sweet spot for Chaos Space Marines, isn't it? And
Yeah.
we'll talk about one of the main things is the stratagem Mr. Deimos, which is when you move within 9, you can either pick up the unit or move away 6. But the way you play around that is by threat overload. And yeah, I mean, eventually the Grey Knights do just kind of have to get sat down and dealt with.
Yeah, they're quite CP hungry as well, right? So they have got an AOC equivalent, right? But I tend to find when I've played Grey Knights is they always go, "Oh, I wish I could armor content, but I've used all my CP."
They're a CP hungry army, definitely.
Yeah, they definitely a lot of their tricks are, or some of their tricks are one use only as well. So they do literally run out of tricks at some point.
Yeah, and they have to drop down and try and do a 9-inch charge, and then you're like, oh shit.
I think Grey Knights work really well against armies where their like massive maneuverability lets them score a lot of primary, right? Which I think is where the fact that Marines is on the performs best against this for all 3 of these factions. I think that's I think it says a lot about Marines and their ability to play primary and stuff. As I think all 3 of these factions that we spoke about are really good at primary.
Yeah, the Grey Knights, because the Grey Knights with all their teleportation that just therefore play secondaries well. But also you've got the fact that that is 10 Terminators with a banner makes them OC3. So that's 30 OC, which can deep strike down 3 inches away.
Yeah.
And then as soon as you move anything within 9, teleports away. And I mean, the one game I played with Jack, the list we'll be talking about shortly, which is 30 big lads, and then 2, and it's so thought intensive just to be trying to rotate those units around and get them in the right place and knowing what to do with them. So it's a really tricky army to play. But like you take someone like Jack Harpster, who's got so many reps in and plays them like masterfully, and I've watched enough battle reports with him in to see like how powerful they can be with all their tricks, because they can do primary and secondary well.
Yeah, that toe and pole win rate makes sense to me, because I know when we played, it felt like I wasn't playing the game for the first 2 turns.
Yeah.
There was just no interaction of any kind. So that makes sense to me, especially if you're playing against Grey Knights for the first time. It's just you're just going to get
so many tricks,
nonsense off the table. Tyranids have a really good win rate into Grey Knights. Any thoughts on that one, Davey?
I think we just screen the board out, right? And we screen out where they want to be, and then we slowly take over the board. Really, that's the way I've tended to beat them in the past. And we have the profiles like CSM that can really kill stuff. Maybe not as good a units as CSM, but Exocrines, Maleceptors, which you'll find in every list, will absolutely smash through Marines.
All right. So I had issues with the spreadsheet. We have one more slide, but we can cover the other 2 bits that we are missing in the list. So this is the list that you were playing at some point. You played against me, right, Chris, with this one?
Yeah.
So we got Drago, a librarian with sigil of
exigence.
That was it. A librarian with inescapable wrath. Yes.
The guessing game.
2 units of 10 Terminators with like every upgrade under the sun. 10 Paladins with 5 Incinerators, and a banner for the OC2. Or is it 3 for a banner?
So yeah, banner will make them OC2.
OC2, right. And then 2x5 Strike Marines and a Calidus Assassin. So this covers all the units I was going to put in the most wanted section.
How convenient.
In that we've got Librarians, we've got Paladins, and we've got we've got Terminators, and we've got Strike Marines. So
even one of the things here is that all these good units are all combat assets, right?
Yeah.
Mostly.
Yeah. The
And-
shooting is pretty.
And this army has no way of coming in less than 9 inches and charging.
Yeah.
So its entire ability is to move around the board and secure 9-inch charges so that it can benefit from its combat prowess.
Well, and that's the interesting thing because it's not particularly that style. Like if you watch the top players use them, they're not at all dropping down to play the 9-inch charge kind of game. So Drago goes with a blob even, and he gives you once per battle a +3 to your charge. So they're coming down and they're doing 6-inch charge. The librarian is with another blob. He gives them +1 to their charges. So they're coming. That is a potential 8-inch kind of thing. So you've got those. They have got those additions. The librarians are there to hold those enhancements, but also they've got Vortex of Doom, which is a really powerful ability, which on a 2 to 5 does 2d3 mortal wounds. Something within 18 inches gets past lone op, so that's quite a nice little play there. And then on a 6, it's like 2d6, and on a 1, you do d6 to yourself. So it is a bit swingy, obviously. You've got the Terminators, who, as we said, are OC2, with a banner become OC3. So it doesn't take many of them, deep striking down 30 or 3 inches away to kind of deal with something like that. And then the Paladins, again, they're OC2. There's 5 incinerators there. There's going to be 2 incinerators on each of the Terminator blobs. So they've kind of got a lot of play there. Also, the thing with the Terminators is you're bringing one back with your Apothecary. But the way these things link is it's a cycle. So if your opponent was playing this sort of list, they would be cycling through these units, trying to use one at a time, put one in the firing line because of the strategy of Mr. Deimos. So that what they don't want is the opponent to get within 9 of 2 different units because then they can't miss away. Because the play is, I go, right, this is my unit that's out doing something. That's going to be in threat from a charge. You move within 9, right, 1 CP, I'm going to miss Deimos up. At the end of your movement phase, I'm now going to rapid ingress them down somewhere else. And it's kind of that rotation. And not many people like those Terminators just suddenly appearing somewhere they weren't planning on dealing with because it doesn't take just incidental shooting to kind of deal with them. You've then got your other blob, which has got the Librarian with the Sigil in, which means that when you're shot at, you can pick them up and they get to teleport somewhere else. And in some armies, that's just a thing you can't constantly have to be thinking about. And so if you're playing into it, you have to make that decision early on. Do I want to try and bait out the Sigil? Or do I want to, am I okay with them having it? I've got to be thinking about, well, I've set up my shot, so if I shoot them, now they pick up actually, where are they going to teleport off to? Is that going to be a big problem for me? So they're constantly asking you to make lots of difficult choices. On top of that, as we know, the army rule is at the end of your turn, I'm going to be able to pick up 3 units and I'm going to be able to deep strike them down next turn. I'm not doing that for charges. I'm doing that for to think about places they can go once I get my cards and that sort of thing. So you're constantly having to screen me out, and you've got to try and screw me out 3 inches. And if I can snake these 10 guys, I can't deep strike them all 3 inches in this particular area, but I might well be able to snake them around, still primary, and that sort of thing. So they're just so kind of like tricksy. You've got 2 units of 5 Marines who scout forward 6. So quite often you can start them on the line, scout forward to that middle if you get first turn. They sticky the objective, and then they can make their move somewhere else. They can be someone that can mist away. You've got the Calidus, who again is another tool to pick up and at the end of the turn. So it's a player who's playing this army well is going to be constantly cycling all these options, giving you something to shoot at or get near, and then it's just going to vanish, and then they're going to go somewhere else. You've got tricks like if you go and make that charge into something, let's say you kill it, because they're reasonably killing. You've got decent output. It's 10 Terminators with force weapons, which are strength 6 -2, 2 damage at the end of the day. If you can then kill something and tag something else, which has got a movement of less than 9, as soon as they fall back, you get to mists away.
Yeah.
Like, there's just a player who's good with this army is going to cause you such a headache. A player that isn't good with this army is, you can see why their win rate's not that high, but I can definitely see situations when you've got so many options as a player, if you're able to use them to their best potential, then it's going to be a thing. I mean, I said my one game I played with Jack, turn one, I went second, so I was able to pick up a unit, and it meant I was able to drop down 3 inches and capture enemy outpost turn one with a unit which has got Sigil of Exigence. Jack then has to drop down his Crisis Block because that's the only way he can really deal with those Terminators. They get shot, and then Sigil of Exigence away. And I was able to pull off turn 2. I think it was a kind of a tag something, fullback, mists away. Now, don't get me wrong, this was my first game with them. By no means did I play it particularly well, and I've encountered issues when Jack was able to put lots of things on the center of objectives, so I couldn't drop down 3, I couldn't kill all of the stuff, and what happened eventually is I did end up having to rely on 9-inch charges, and Jack was able to just kind of eviscerate the blobs. I think I lost 20 Terminators on turn 4.
When they did eventually get to shoot you.
When you got to shoot them, right? And so that was that thing of like, I could see the potential there, and I'm sure as I was to play the army more and more and more, and I worked out the combos and how to play, you could see it would be really powerful. But when you get it wrong, you will still get kind of destroyed. So yeah, there's so many things to be thinking of when you play into them and match up into the Grey Knights. So it's kind of about working out the spaces you're happy for them to go into. And then if you can, try and get multiple charges into multiple units so that they can only miss kind of one away.
Yeah, so I guess the biggest things to keep in mind are Miss of Demos. So don't go within 9 if you don't have to.
Or if you're happy for them to go away, but some trains. Yeah.
And the other one will be, if in doubt, it can probably do some kind of movement shenanigan. If you're not sure if it can move, it probably can.
Yeah,
it's a pretty safe bet.
Like trying to screen all game as well, because obviously things just keep getting picked up.
Yeah.
It's probably why they're struggling, right? Because in their tricks rely you on coming close to them. We're in a meta really of shooting stuff, so they can just, if your opponent knows what your hints and tricks are, they're just going to use those assets to remove yours without getting too close, I guess.
Yeah, they can't. They don't have like a deep strike in and slap someone with 3 melter guns, right? Or multi-melters or something.
Oh, Dave, those storm bolters are.
Yeah, so it's their killing power range is obviously highly limited and very specific, which is I guess why they go for the incinerators.
They struggle with vehicles, inevitably, outside of Vortex, but also another thing they play the mission well on is that they don't give up Bring It Down. They don't they very rarely give up overwhelming force. A lot of the cards, like No Prisoners, like as long as they're keeping that Calidus and those strikes safe, that's the idea. It's kind of a denial army. They're denying your secondaries, they're denying your primary, especially for the first 3-4 turns, and they're scoring theirs pretty well, and that's kind of how they're designed to play.
Cool.
I haven't played Magic the Gathering, but I like to imagine that if there was a 40k army, like equivalent of like a blue deck, that's what this would be.
They're like, for the love of God.
Yeah, it's so painful to play against. Like, it's real up there. It's like right next to Eldar, funnily enough, which you also play.
Yeah, weird. Just to clarify, I am currently painting World Eaters, so we've all got that. But
so who's that World Eaters right now, right?
I think that's the really appealing thing about this army is that they can kind of try and play a game without killing you, and can kind of just try and win anyway, just through the tricks. And sometimes they're just going to get caught and butchered, and sometimes they will come off. But yeah, it's quite
a good flex, isn't it, to win a game without. I beat a Knights player once without killing a Knight, and I was like, this is the best feeling I've ever had.
I beat Sisters with my Harlequins once, killed 3 models the entire game because I just blocked them in their deployment zone for the entire game, and they just couldn't get out because they had all like the Paragon wall sorts. It was so satisfying.
So I guess in summary for the Grey Knights, the thing to keep in mind is screen them out. That's something. Watch out for Mr. Demos. And then if you're thinking if for a new player getting into as a new player for Grey Knights yourself, what do you think new players should be looking at doing for Grey Knights? You think, Chris? What do you think is a good idea?
I think it's kind of I think because don't get me wrong, there are lots of other ways you can obviously play the army. There's quite a lot of people playing like MSU stuff at the moment because what we haven't spoken about, like interceptors. So they do the gargoyle thing. They shoot and scoot. They move 12. They shoot. They move 6. And the whole Grey Knight's other rule is that if you advance, you gain fly and move 6 inches. And there is a strat to enable you to like basically assault and do that. So interceptors are really good for shooting, scooting, going to 18 and then moving 6. That's great for things. So I'm not sure whether this particular list is beginner friendly, but I think as a starting Grey Knight player, the thing I'm thinking of is I've probably writing down a checklist. I'm thinking, right, in each of my turns, I need to always remember to pick up my units. So that would be on my sheet. Remember to pick up your units. Or which units do you need to pick up? Well, you need to think, well, what do I want? Can I move these units? They're 5 inches or whatever it is in such a way to do something. If they're actually no, then why not pick them up? And that's kind of like that. Those are the things you're going to be thinking of. The next thing on my list is going to be what am I doing with my sigil unit? Has Drago got a good target? Because Drago is anti-demon 2+, and you can spend a strat to give him devastating wings, which is quite good at picking up a lot of things.
Like Forge Fiends and Obliterators.
Yeah, exactly, especially at 3 damage.
Apparently not.
So,
10%.
there's also you can take Grandmasters who have an ignore modifiers ability as well. So there's lots of toolbox options. But yeah, I'd be making a list and I'd be trying to check to make sure, right, have I picked up the right units? Have I only given them one option realistically for mists? What am I doing with my sigil unit? And then just trying to kind of like, and I think it's going to be really important each turn to be thinking, when I drop down 3 inches, can I give them a 0 or a 5? And like, especially, can you give them a 0? If they're away, I can get these 10 Terminators onto 2 objectives and give them a 0, and that's how you're going to kind of generate those differentials.
Awesome. Right, so I think that pretty much covers it. I apologise for the spreadsheet, the PowerPoint being a bit scuffed today, but that's all right. Next time, I think maybe World Eaters would be a good army to look at.
We've got so many World Eater mains now in the team.
Yeah.
We get there first, right?
But beyond that, I'm not sure what we would look at. So post your comments below as an army you want us to take a look at, or put it in the Discord or something like that. But yeah, thank you, Chris. Thank you, Davey, for coming and talking to us about. Thank you, Lincoln, as well, for keeping us entertained. Thank you. Yeah. So yeah, thanks everyone. Thanks for watching, and that pretty much covers us. So that'll be it. We'll shoot off now.
Bye.
Bye.